The RPG Maker General Podcast, or the rpgmgp. Gather round, all children who love stories. Hello everybody, and welcome to the RPG Maker General Podcast, or the rpgmgp, your one-stop shop for everything RPG Maker. This is Cody, aka Marpix, and with me today are Blue Sky Robyn.
Hi. It's me.
And now in high definition, the Red Mage.
Hello, I have a new microphone. It's awesome.
And don't let anyone tell you otherwise, soul brother.
I can't tell the difference, RM. You sound like the same good old RM from before.
Well, at least I haven't, changed dramatically from that. I just hope it comes out better, much like stomach problems. Anyway, let's move on.
All right. We'll do a little bit of warm-up here. How's everyone's month been? Mine's been okay. It's basically been a blur. I finished Defeat the Darkness 5 weeks ago, and I'm still, in the post-finishing hangover. And it's ticking me off a bit. I should be doing more, dang it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Because anytime you just kind of finish a project, you're just... Even when you finish a game, you're just kind of I'm satisfied. I don't need to do anything else with my life. And then... Normally, within a couple weeks you start getting an itch, but you're running on a lot longer than I normally do before that itch comes back. So that's kind of unfortunate. But hopefully your spark will return shortly.
Yeah, I've been piddly farting around in XP and a little bit of EX Ace, and I'm hoping before the next podcast to have a one town, one dungeon thing just to get back into game dev proper.
Yeah, for sure. On my end, I've been ridiculously busy, mostly with the visual novel. We're gearing up to start jumping onto social media here soon, so that's really exciting. And then we've got almost all of the outlines done. We've got, I think, 2 characters left to finish, and then just some edits to do, and then we're on to script writing. So we're actually at a point where there's an actual end to all of this that we've been doing for so long.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You've been doing this without an ending?
Well,
How's that work?
Well, we just didn't really have a destination that we're working towards. Okay, we need to finish this piece. Okay, we need to finish this piece. Okay, we need to finish this piece. But now we're at a point where we have enough pieces that we can actually kind of see what this ending puzzle is supposed to look like. So.
And you didn't make the ending, so it's just a huge cliff to fall off of. Great.
Well, with 10 different characters, there's 10 endings. So no, we don't have one ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was talking with some friends of mine about possibly, making something, because, I still have this channel, and making videos it's pretty fun. But we all had different ideas of how to run things, I had your idea, RM, where, we don't know what we have yet, so let's, lay some stuff down, what's interesting, what could work within it, and see what happens. And I had a friend or two that were they wanted to categorize everything really fast, throw it into boxes. And,
okay.
And so we had the faction of, we don't know what we have yet, and the faction of, we have to define everything right now, and it ended up being a huge mess.
Yeah. That's kind of even starting an RPG Maker game. Do I just start making stuff, or do I spend, 100+ hours in the database getting everything categorized?
Well, one of those is fun.
Exactly. The other, it makes me give up on games long before they've even started, as a matter of fact.
RM, that's not a good thing to say about RPG Maker.
Dude, the database is boring. I don't care what game it is. The database is awful.
Look, it takes a special kind of person to not only play, but also get the high score, and also enjoy Super Spreadsheet Adventure 2006, alright?
It's true.
Yeah.
Hate Super Spreadsheet Adventure.
Robyn, what have you been up to?
Okay. 3 words. Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, a lot of people I know have just kind of fallen off this
But I've been having a lot of fun on it. It's great. It's what I wanted from Monster Hunter for a long time.
I'm kind of a fan of the series. I've never played any of the games, but several of the Discord chats I'm in have a new Monster Hunter World channel. That's like that's how impactful this game has been to just many of the online communities that I'm a part of. It's crazy to me.
My God.
But it looks fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's really good. But that has nothing to do with RPG Maker. For RPG Maker, I have not heard from the new collab project in a while.
Rip
Have
collab.
you guys heard from it like recently?
No.
Like I heard the 2017 one finished and the download is floating around somewhere, but like the 2018 one I have like not heard of ever since the start of January.
Well, I think what happened is like both you and I think it was Latrans had an idea for the new one, but we ran into the problem of you both had an idea, so neither one got started.
I think I made it pretty clear to him that I moved aside right away to let him do his thing, and then nothing happened.
All right, well, this is where Cody rides in and says, you know what, fuck it, we're making an XP collab game, let's go.
Oh, hell yeah. I am so down. The one system I know how to use. Let's do it.
That's right, the Tall Sprite Adventure. Yeah, but no, props to whoever finished the 2017 collab and finally got that off everybody's chest. Did we talk about that last time?
I think only in passing, not in detail.
Okay. So long story short, rpgmg has had a couple collab games over the years, and after the blow up of the last one, when we first started this podcast, Robyn over here helped with it, and we got it all the way to the ending, but then no one wanted to write the ending. So then we started over, and we tried to make it a smaller game, to make it, more feasible and finishable. And that got blown up.
Yep. It turns out it didn't work out because we tried to make it shorter, but then with less people, they tried to cram even more shit into it.
Yeah.
So the problem came even faster than the last one.
And then suddenly everyone wakes up in a volcano with no explanation.
That sounds like an awful just anything.
Yeah. But somebody took it upon themselves to take the 4 or 5 chapters that had been made and turn it into a cohesive game. Yeah. They were dropping ideas on thread, like, how do I explain this? And how do we have this villain and this villain? And, the vague figures in the intro were never properly given anything to do. And
right.
And then, 2 months later, dropped it like, yo, here's the collab. Like, oh my god. Oh my god.
Said no one ever. I don't think it got a big reception after it was finished.
Poor guy. Put that much work into it.
I appreciate it. I'll play it. Why don't we play it in the future, Cody?
You know what? We should.
All right. I'm down.
All right. Right after Barkley shut up and jam Gaiden.
Hell yeah.
No, don't say that. That's a secret. That's a secret. But maybe the next collab will just make it even simpler. Like, just climb this fucking tower, reach the top. That's the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like in Blame the anime.
Blam. Blam this piece of
single word
crap.
anime. What am I supposed to get out of that?
I don't know. I never watched it. Anyway, let's get on to some RPG Maker here.
Right.
All right. So the game we covered this month is Aria's story. It was made primarily by Lydia. It was originally in Spanish, but Rindre, who is the voice of Aria, also led the translation team to bring it into English. So we were able to play it because no comprende. It is very reminiscent of Eve. It stars a girl named Aria who falls asleep in a library and wakes up in a creepy version of the library, and it's got like a bunch of books, and the books are NPCs, and you can talk to the books, and she goes through different sections. So you go through comedy and fairy tales, romance, horror, and then you finally have the ending. She meets some people along the way, including a narrator, a writer, a librarian, and a lot of spooky shit happens. I wanted to keep this loose like the last one. I'm going to start with what I liked. I really, really enjoyed the aesthetic that they had. The art, the visual effects overlaid on top of the screen, the tile sets they used. I felt it all gelled really well. I also liked the music and the sound effects. The whole general atmosphere worked really well in this game, and if it was made into like an anime or something, I could see that happening.
Yeah, there's enough cohesive atmosphere in this whole game for it to just kind of all work together, because even when you're going from like the extremely different worlds from like comedy and even into horror, they're all still obviously part of the same like same world. It's not like, you know, you're using the medieval tile set and then you're like, okay, we're in Futureland. Here is a space age modern tile set. Everything works really well together. I personally liked, and this is just one of my personal like things that I do in every game, is I check everything as I'm playing it, even when I'm just playing it for fun. It's been instilled in me because of Final Fantasy IV, where you would just go into people's houses, search their pots, and get like ethers and potions and that kind of thing. So now it doesn't matter what RPG Maker game I play, I just search everything, and there are a lot of things that you can interact with, from the books that talk to you to like the bookshelves themselves, and you get little blurbs of speech from Aria and everybody else too that's in your party. So it kind of world builds that way based on all that. It's just a really small, neat feature that I'd like to add on to, because yeah, that's kind of what I had written down as well, is just the overall cohesiveness of the art is something that I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Robyn, that means it's your turn.
Oh, all right, fine. Seriously though, like the art is pretty nice, and like some of the puzzles were cool, but like, warning, I'm not really a fan of like scary, spooky stuff, so I'm very biased about this.
We had to pay somebody to hold his hand while he played.
It was a spook fest for a while, and I'll get into that.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I really liked, especially for most of the early game, all the ways you could die. Like for the first 2 or 3 worlds, I specifically went out of my way to see all the fun ways you could die. It's kind of like that video game Heart of Darkness. It's that platformer where like there's a billion ways for the kid you're playing to lose his life. Like he can fall, he can get squished, he can get eaten. And I really enjoyed the creativity in those early sections where they don't have a whole lot of extra sprites for Aria, but they made it work. Like, you're locked in a room with a tiger. Great. You get turned into a doll. Okay. You get wrapped up in a present. You get squished. You get squished in a different way.
Yeah, that's how you get squished a lot.
Yeah, and it, like, they didn't need a whole lot of sprites to convey that. It was economical, but it worked, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, and it worked. It was really cool and interesting for me, and I actually avoided a lot of the deaths, honestly, because I was like, I'm so smart. I know what they're hinting at here. I can get around this. Because there's like the one, because I took notes too while I was playing this time again. The one note in comedy where like the bookshelves like to have fun. So I was like, okay, well, obviously if I try and do anything with these bookshelves, they're just gonna gank me. And then I tried anyway and I got ganked. So, but no, it's just kind of they weren't ever, generally speaking, they weren't too obtuse with the ways to die. There were some where it kind of happened and there wasn't a whole lot that you could really do about it to know ahead of time. But for the most part, they were really good about giving the player enough warning to know, okay, this is what you need to do to not get killed here.
Yeah, especially because this game is similar to Ebe. You know, Ebe had a life system, and if you lost too many petals on your rose, you died. Well, in Aria's story, there is no life system, so they really had to decide which mistakes killed you and which ones just gave you a little screen and go, oh, it bit me, and then go from there.
Yep.
And I feel that they were restrained. You know, the deaths were fair. There was one where there's like a logic puzzle, and you have to figure out which statue is the most beautiful. And I've done logic puzzles forever, so it was really easy for me to deduce. And I figured, oh, let's pick the wrong one just for fun. And I picked the wrong one, and I got kicked out of the room. So I just had to go back in and guess again. I'm like, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing that I did kind of want to get into a little bit is like at the beginning of the game, it was very like punishment heavy. If you screwed up, you were dead. That was kind of the end of it. But as the game went on, that kind of started to go away, and it became more about telling a story than it was about, you not dying. It kind of is a really weird transition because I know, especially early on, because I've got notes for all kinds of stuff about like the ways to die, and like one of the things too that I pitched about in the Skype chat was just there's at one point a rabbit who has a coin, and you need the coin to proceed. However, if you take the coin, he's pissed at you, and then he kills you. Even if you have a carrot and try to give it to him afterward, he's just like, no, I don't want your carrot, you asshole. So you die, and then you have to, give the carrot again. But then, like, later on, once you get to, like, horror, which you would think there would be all kinds of ways to die, I was, like, looking for things, and I didn't find a whole lot of ways that I could actually be killed in horror.
Which is rather ironic, really.
Yeah.
I feel they spent a lot more of their effort on trying to kill you early on, and maybe they ran out of ideas. Because, like, in horror, they had the knives coming at you, and that was unique, and that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're an indie dev, do you try and keep all the deaths unique, or do you recycle a couple, and then everyone goes, man, I already dealt with that. Bleh, a bookshelf squished me in horror. Bullshit. Like,
right. I don't know, because, I mean, they do recycle some of the ones, like, speaking of the bookshelves, one of my favorite deaths was in the comedy section still. It's after because there's the bookshelves that squish you, and then there's at one point you make it up past them, and you get some item, I forget what it is. And as soon as that happened, there's like a note that appears in the top middle of the screen that you're supposed to read. However, it goes ka-thunk when it shows up. So I was like, oh shit, it's going to kill me. So then I sprinted straight down, and I got caught by the bookshelves again. Because I didn't know what it was.
Bookshelf to electric boogaloo. Yeah,
yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, so that one was like a really good recycling, because it just took what the player already knew and then just kind of like tricked them by being like, oh no, there's something there. You need to run away. So then I ran away and then I died, and I was like, son of a bitch. I knew about that.
Did you actually read the note, by the way?
I mean, since I died, because like I saw it was a note as I was being splattered, so then like when I reloaded and had to go through it again, then I reread it.
Oh, the long way, okay.
Yeah.
Another fun one that they did, fun, so you got caught because you knew about the shift key to run around, and thank God for that.
Yeah.
At the end of, was it comedy that there was the turtle?
Fairy Tales.
Fairy Tale.
Okay, so at the end of Fairy Tales, there's a turtle. And he's just wandering around. He's just a big old turtle, acting like a turtle. And when you talk to him, he says, you can hold shift to run. And then, a little bit later in that section, you get chased. Like, there's something after you, and it's not one of the instant deaths. And so you have to run away from this thing. And so you get told about running. They make sure you know right before you have to sprint the hell out of there. That's another thing about the design of the deaths, is normally you get locked in a room or you get instantly ganked because of the run key. And I think that they did that really well.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And one thing, too, that I mean, and it kind of ties into that turtle with that rabbit and the same rabbit that I mentioned before. Like, that was another motif that just kind of went away after Fairy Tale, because, like, in the early on, there were all kinds of ways to get ganked by this rabbit. And it was kind of a really creepy-looking rabbit, I mean, all things considered. But then once you got out of there, it kind of went away. And one thing that I was kind of curious about, and I'll get into this more once we get to discussing the endings, if that was actually intentional. But again, we'll get into that. Another thing I was a really big fan of, especially early on, were the sound effects. There were just like random tiles that if you stepped on it, it would like just play a sound. So, like, as you're wandering around in the initial library, kind of lost and looking around, there's all these sounds of this thing moving around and making noise and just kind of freaking you out. And it can't get to you because they're just sound effects, but it just worked really well to add to that atmosphere that they were looking for.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed the sound effects, especially, like, there's one where you paint. You can actually... I mean, this is kind of cheesy, but I enjoy it. Like, you can tell that they put a paintbrush next to the microphone to record that sound effect, and
Yep.
that was cute.
The sound design is pretty good. Yeah, it was so good that fuck that like labyrinth part. I hated that part. even though nothing happens in it, fuck that place.
But it's
Jeez,
a labyrinth.
I got super spooked even though nothing happened there. Jeez.
Yeah, no, whenever I hit like any kind of maze in anything, I immediately just follow the right-hand wall. It doesn't matter what it is, what kind of dungeon it is, it's just immediately follow the right-hand wall. So I didn't get all that lost or wrapped up in there. So I don't know. Mazes in general, unless there's something else going on.
It's about you're trying to follow the walls, and then you hear like the floor creaking, and it's not the same spots you're stepping on, so you have the feeling like something's following you.
Right.
Like you even hear a door opening somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That fucked me up, dude.
Fair enough. I guess that kind of works in that same sound design, mentioned before. Those random sound effects that they've got just kind of throughout are really, really choice. They do a really good job with those, absolutely. Now, as far as one thing, and maybe I missed it, and maybe I'm stupid, there was one puzzle in that whole game where there was like no pretense, there was nothing that I could find that like would teach you what you needed to do, which was the witch's house, like the Hansel and Gretel house. Was there something that I missed? Because basically it was just... You just keep guessing until you figure out the order to get the pie to show up.
Right. The cake puzzle, yeah.
Yeah.
The order of what cakes you're supposed to press was displayed before, like on the way to that book classroom.
Yeah, because it was blue, red, green, red, orange, blue. I have it written down, but I didn't see anything anywhere that indicated that. So maybe there was like some background colors or some books or something. I don't know.
All right, okay. I have to explain it then, because like when you go to that house, you see like these buttons next to these cakes, right? There are pictures of these cakes on like the other end of the hallway.
Oh, like, yeah. One of the books did mention the picture of the cakes. Okay.
Like right outside that one classroom is like pictures of cakes lined up on the wall, and that's the order you're supposed to press them in.
Aha.
Oh,
okay. I missed that entirely. Okay, well that's good then. There was a hint for it. I just missed it. Okay, yeah. I'm stupid.
I did encounter a death that had no explanation at all. Like at the end of Romance, like you can just like walk right next to this what's it called? This needle thing.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
The old wheel needle, whatever it is thing.
The spinning wheel.
Yeah. You can just walk right next to it and then just die for no reason.
I mean, it's Sleeping Beauty.
I'm just gonna walk this way. Dead. Game over. No explanation. Well, no fucking explanation for it. Well, I mean, yes, if you know your stories, then you would kind of know what it is, but like still, no warning.
Well, because in Sleeping Beauty, like she pricks her finger on an old spinning wheel and then goes into a deep sleep.
Right, but Cody, Romance is after Fairy Tale. Why would you not think that was part of Fairy Tale?
It's a love story.
It's still kind of bullshit though.
For the button puzzle, like I just brute forced it. I didn't care because again, no penalty. The one puzzle I had trouble with, This isn't like one that was hard or anything, but it was just kind of like, really? It's like with you and the carrot red mage. I forget which section this is because, God, I'm stupid this morning. It was probably Fairy Tales, where there's the book in the cage. Like, you meet... Yeah, so you do all the stuff you need to do in this section, and then a little gnome moves, and then you talk to the narrator, and you get to move on to the next area. And there's a book in a cage, and he's like, help me, help me! And you choose help him, and then he says, thanks for trading places with me, and then now you're stuck in the cage. And that was really silly, because the game explicitly tells you that all keys will automatically be used. And the only way to access this room is to complete the event that gives you the key that unlocks his cage. So by talking to him and helping him, you die. But by going into your inventory and using a key, which you're not supposed to have to do, you free him properly and can advance.
Yep. Yeah, that one was... I fell into the exact same trap. I was just like, help him. I was like, okay, well, I've got the key. What else am I supposed to do? Sure. And then it's like, oh, thanks. And Aria's like, wait, no. And I'm like, wait, no, that's not what I wanted at all. And then, yeah, in the cage.
Betrayal!
Fucking book.
Sneaky-ass book.
Speaking of the narrator, though, I've got several notes of something the narrator says, just followed by cunt and all kinds. So, I did not like her at all.
That's not wrong.
Yeah, there's one that I've got like underlined several times where she's like, well, I said that you could ask me a question. I never said I was going to answer. It's just like, bitch! I didn't like her at all. I didn't like most of the side characters. As soon as I showed up, I'm like, I don't trust you. I don't trust you in the slightest.
I mean, like, you couldn't really trust her even at the start, right?
Yeah. Like
she kills you for getting the password wrong or something at the start.
Well, no, at the beginning, she doesn't kill you. I think she's like, no, that's not it. Or no, I think you do die, actually.
Do die. The screen goes dark. She says, nah, that's wrong. And then Aria gasps, and then, I don't know, I guess she got garroted to death or something. I don't know.
Probably.
Of the side characters, I think Lewin was the best done, but like the narrator, like the librarian, I think there was more they could have added to flesh them out, because the ending is pretty darn interesting, and if they made more of an effort in the side characters, I think it would have more impact.
Yeah.
As far as, like, Lewin goes, when he joins your party, at first he wants to kill you, and then he goes, well, never mind. And it was kind of shaky for me, but I was fine with it, because whatever, it's anime. But what really helps that is when you go to romance, whenever Aria checks a bookshelf, now that she has someone with her, instead of it just saying, there are many books on the bookshelf, she and Lewin are having a conversation about the books they see, and just about every shelf has a new, like, little skit for them to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that happened a little bit too in the earlier ones, but it was just basically Aria talking to herself, and so you got like a couple little blurbs about things. And I'm curious if there are some, and this will relate to the ending later, but some contradictory things that are mentioned. But I wasn't paying close enough to what she was saying at that time. It was just like, oh, that's cute. I'm okay with this, and then I moved on. So, but yeah, she does have her own little conversations with herself too, with those bookshelves, even before you get Lewin on your team.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of peaked in Fairy Tales, because I remember in comedy, like, basically nothing happens with the shelves in comedy, but in Fairy Tales they actually put, like, titles on some of the books.
Yep. And speaking of titles, how well did everybody do on the test in the classroom? Because I bombed it.
What happens if you bomb it?
Nothing. The teacher's just kind of like, oh, well,
it just says, oh, you suck at the test.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah. It's like, oh, I expected better. Well, here's a consolation prize. Here's the key to the gingerbread house.
Yeah, you get the same prize no matter how you do on the test. But all the answers were in the they were in the room. They were in the classroom.
Yeah. Let's see.
If you talk to one of the books, they say you can look at the books over there.
Yeah.
You can read up on the answers.
So I wrote down the red shoes, velveteen rabbit, ugly duckling. That's all I wrote down for that. Because, like, I don't know what I need to, like, know on this. Also, I figure I'll probably just die, and then I'll just get through it again. But no, I failed, and I just had to feel like an idiot for the rest of the game. That was worse.
So just so you know out there, kids, even us adults, we would rather die than study.
It's true.
I think I still got, like, 2 out of 3. Because, like, one of the questions I was really proud of is, like, there were 2 books that were written by the same author, and then one that was not written by that author. And I knew that one. I'm like, yeah, I'm smart.
I know this thing.
Yep, Hans Christian Andersen wrote a lot of books.
It's true, he did.
What a fucking asshole. Anyway.
Hey, Robyn, you need to let it go. Nobody? He wrote The Snow Queen. You see where I'm going with this?
I never read The Snow Queen.
It got adapted into Frozen, asshole.
Oh, I get it.
Fucking.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm uncultured.
I still want to see the live-action Little Mermaid, where they actually murder each other in the end.
Oh my god.
That's what happens, as said by Hans.
Well, yeah, old fairy tales are crazy and creepy and weird. And so Disney was like, no, they're pretty. Look, we promise. And then you're like, oh, yeah, look how pretty it is. So one thing I wanted to kind of bring up, too, is there's a pretty, at least, unless I completely missed it, there was a pretty interesting inconsistency. It was a very small inconsistency, but there was a room. It was in Romance. It's when you're going back and forth from the sun to the moon. And I think it was in the moon side where the dress gets stolen, or leaves, I guess. There's the room right beneath it I couldn't get into. Like, anytime I tried to go in, the door was locked. Later on, I guess I unlocked, what the progression to get into that room, and the dress is in there, and if you talk to it with Aria, she's like, I don't think that dress was in here before. And I'm like, Aria, you weren't in here before. How would you know?
There's an event that makes it appear. Like, I went in the room and it wasn't there, and then I did something and that made it appear.
Okay, so I must have skipped that bit in there. Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's locked for most of the time, and then when it is finally unlocked, you can see the dress entering the door. Like when you go in the room, you don't see it. So you look for the clue you need, which is a picture. You look at the picture, and then after you're done looking at the picture, the dress is right over there with blood all over it, or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, the dress appears after you find your clue.
Yeah.
Okay. So I must have not gone into the room the first time then, because the only time I was ever in that room, the dress was in there. So I somehow I broke the game. I don't know, but that seems like something you should be able to not do.
Well, what they did though was they put the dress. So you enter the room from the north. Well,
yep.
And then you're at the north part of the room, and the clue is immediately to your west. So all you have to do is go left, and boom, there it is. And the dress you can barely see because it's far to the south and in the corner of the screen at this point. So. Yep. If they had put the clue in a different spot, you would walk by that couch, grab your clue, then the dress would appear. And you would walk right past it and go, whoa, shit, where'd that dress come from? But in this instance, it's basically in a spot you wouldn't think to see if you're just looking for the little sparkle on the bookshelf for your clue.
Right.
Let's transition into map design real quick.
Okay.
I was okay with it for most of the game. I wasn't turned off by having to search some of the bookshelves. Like, to even start the actual adventure, you have to find the Romeo and Juliet book in the tragedy shelves. Well, there's only about 12 shelves you have to check, and you have a run button. So it's kind of like Final Fantasy Legend in the sense that they make you check everything, but the world is small enough that you don't completely mind.
Yeah.
I
can get behind that.
First. First, huh? Cody? First? Yeah? I don't remember that as the first part, Cody.
Well, it's to start your adventure. Like you do the riddle or whatever, and then you're in the room with the shelves.
That fucking first hallway with the shelf. God damn it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna complain about it later. I'll let you finish for now, but I'm gonna complain about it later.
All right. I also liked how the rooms were fairly compact. They let you do that, and again the design was great. They also made them big enough to make the shift button useful. So like there are games where you're basically in really tight corridors and you're playing Pac-Man. Aria's story is not like that. You have a run button and you're given a lot of leeway for how to traverse where you're going. But I do have a couple issues. Like, for example, the first side room to find the garden, before you start anything, Robyn, before any of the spooky shit happens, the side door to the garden isn't marked. So you just have to know that a 1 square section of a wall means a door. This got better in the romance section because in romance, every single hallway had a lamp over it. So you knew, okay, there's a lamp, here's a hallway. But
Right.
yeah, but in fairy tales, like to use the golden key, I think it was, there's no lamp, there's no marker. You just have to check every single wall. And basically every wall did have a door, but I still wasn't thinking like that at the time, and I had to use a guide to find it.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that. My biggest, honestly, and I have several notes about this as far as map design goes. I mean, the view angle or view distance that Aria had was kind of annoying here and there. I ended up basically just turning up the brightness on my TV to deal with that. But the one room actually that really kind of grinded my gears was it's right at the end of comedy. It's that staircase, like the 4-level stairs that you go down. And it's so awkward. Like she's like moving. She'll move left, down, left, down, left, left, down, left, left. And it's like just if you're gonna have something like that, make your stairs be sideways stairs, Final Fantasy VI style, so you smoothly move up and down them. Because that took me completely out of the game, watching her just kind of jump up and down these different stairs here.
Yeah, whatever tile set they used, the stairs were not a perfect 45-degree angle, so she's like diagonal left, or diagonal right, or whatever. Like,
yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, that was really weird over there.
Yeah,
Like
was not a fan.
Yeah, I didn't like the part where it was super dark, like in places where it shouldn't be dark. I mean, like, yes, it's nighttime, but like some rooms are like well lit, but still really like you have this shadow around you, like almost all the time.
Yep.
And even though the room should be well lit, it's still like darkened. And like some rooms are actually like really good looking too, like the carousel room in comedy.
Yeah, the carousel room was really cool. I liked it a lot. But that's another area too where I think the map and eventing design was a little off, because I was actually talking with Robyn about this before. Because you have to like loop up and around, go through a hidden passage behind a bookshelf, and you come into this table which has the last of the playing cards that you need to like activate it. But as soon as you like touch it, these 4 clowns appear. And so apparently you're supposed to just go up around these clowns that are gonna get you, and come out this other door. As soon as I saw the clowns, I just turned around and left and went back the way I came in and looped all around. So what ended up happening is a door on the right-hand side that you're supposed to leave out of was just locked for me. And I was like, oh, there's something else here. I just can't figure out what I need to do with this. Maybe I come back to these zones later on, which was then that thought was kind of pushed a little more once you get to like to the hub room that shows up where the pink door's at, which we'll get to. And I was like, oh, cool, I can go back. But then I couldn't go back then either. And I was just like, what the hell? So then I talked to Robyn about it. Yeah, apparently I'm supposed to just go around all of the creepy, scary clowns and then come out the front door. And not just leave immediately.
I see what happened here. You got spooked by the clown suddenly appearing that you ran out the way you came. Like when
I mean, in character, yes. Out of character, it's like, I don't want to die here and have to go through this whole freaking thing again.
Oh, okay. It's like I had the opposite effect. Like I got the thing, they appeared, and I'm like, please don't do anything to me. And guess what? They didn't do anything to me.
Yeah.
I looked around the room, exit at the south. Sure.
No, so I just left. I don't want to mess with them. But one thing I did notice too, especially in that particular puzzle with the horses and the playing cards, whenever you use an item, it does a double click noise. Like when you're going through your inventory and everything else, it's like tunk tunk tunk. But when you use an item, it's like tunk tunk. And that was really annoying to me. I don't know if it was just me. It kind of just felt like they'd edited something in there, so instead of just getting one confirmation, you got two confirmations. And so it was just like whenever when going through the puzzle, it's just like tunk 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 ta tunk 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 ta tunk to go through and go through the puzzle. That was just me. It got on my nerves by the fourth card.
Oh man. And that was the fourth and final time you heard it too.
Yeah.
God. Well, for saving was interesting for me because, like, some of the parts of the save thing have, like, a delay on them, but when you actually save your game, there's no delay. So, like, I'd be mashing the button and it'd be like, dunk, 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 dunk. Oh, okay, that's like 10 saves. Okay, that's great. Going back to the lighting, oh, man. Like, the second part of Romance, when you're trying to grab the fish for the mermaid book, your field of view drops to about a tile and a half, and it stays there for horror, and that is just too little, my dude.
Yeah.
And I understand, wanting to make the game seem spooky, but there's a point where it starts to impact your gameplay, and that is purely detrimental. You guys talk about the carousel room. The room that really bugged me regarding the lighting script was the one with the trees, like the spring, summer, winter, autumn trees.
Mm-hmm.
It's the autumn and the summer trees. They are in the middle of the screen. They're fully viewable. But the lighting script cuts off the spring tree on the left and the winter tree on the right.
Right.
So these are very nice sprites, but we can't see all of it because the lighting script is getting in the way. So do you sacrifice a bit of your aesthetic to show off, the cooler bits of your game?
Yeah, I noticed that as well when I went in there. I was like, what's up with these trees? There's only two. And then it's like, you have to go in and, because I'd actually went in there and then left. Because I was like, I don't see anything here that I need to do. And then I had to loop back around to find it again at a later point.
After you managed to steal the tulip from the three bears.
Man, those fucking bears.
Yeah, those bears suck. They chase after you even though you didn't do anything to them.
Yeah. I have many. I mean, once we get to discussing the zones, in particular favorite zones, I will go on for a while about those bears. It's fucking bears.
Yeah, Fairy Tail is pretty bad.
Oh no, I loved it. But those fucking bears.
Any other criticisms of the game before we move into favorite zones?
Let me look at my notes. Oh, I did have one. There was one point, and I have this in all caps with exclamation points and question marks after it. There's the scene where the narrator starts to kind of regain some of her memories. Spoilers. There's a point where she's she turns to Lewin and she's like, "Thank you for keeping my secret." And then she leaves. And then Lewin and Aria are like, "Okay, let's go." And Aria doesn't even once be like, "Okay, Lewin, what the hell is she talking about? What secret is going on here?" There was nothing from Aria. And I was like, are you kidding me right now?
Oh, no. Okay, I know the exact scene you're talking about. And you have to remember, Aria was 2 or 3 spaces away. So the narrator was confiding in Lewin. They weren't joined at the hip at that point. So it's feasible that Aria didn't hear.
I guess.
Yeah, so they were just whispering loudly, RM, deal with it.
I guess. I mean, that is probably what it is. It's just Because yeah, she was about 2 squares away, so I was just kind of frustrated with that. That even if she was whispering something to them, that even at that point, Aria wasn't like, "Hey, buddy, what you talking about? What's going on here?" Nothing. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Okay, that's fair.
I think that's the last criticism that I had on that. Was just when I saw that, I was just like, no, okay, no, that's not how this works. Okay, that's pretty much all I got.
All right, Robyn, you've got like a bomb to drop, so I'm gonna go next. So
Right.
RM brought up earlier that there weren't a whole lot of deaths in horror because they were probably kind of running out of ideas. That extends into the finale, kind of, where they think that walking is gameplay, and it's not. What happens for the end part of the game after you beat horror is you walk through a bunch of hallways, and you're teased along by the librarian, and you read a bunch of shit, which doesn't offer you a whole lot of insight into how the game's going to end. But there's also a lot of save points. I believe there's about 4 save points between the end of horror and the actual finale. And for those keeping track at home, Custom Robo only ever had 2 save points during its cutscenes. And with Custom Robo, like, they would be talking, would you like to save? Now here's the rest of the cutscene, and then back to gameplay. So I think Aria's vagueness and also that ending sequence did not contribute to making the ending satisfying.
Yeah,
I can get behind
it was
that.
a really long time since the last puzzle that was kind of gonna kill you. What was the thing that would kill you before that point?
Was that the puzzle where you walked along where the bunny hopped, or was there a puzzle after that?
I think that's the last puzzle that actually will kill you before the end.
And when you're going along that giant hallway, like right before the end, again, you're not learning anything. Like, you see pictures of the cast, the bookworm, the narrator, the writer, the librarian, but they're not offering you anything new. They don't tell the player anything new about the characters they've seen.
I mean, it did kind of imply that there's more to the library than what it was initially showing, which is a good twist for near the end, but like it's kind of like awkward also. Like it's all in the back end.
Yeah.
All the information's in the back end.
That was probably my biggest problem with the plot, is that I would have liked it a lot more if there had been some foreshadowing, some hint dropping, something in there. But basically, up until that point, you've got 2 creepy zones, a zone with Lewin, a zone where you play as Lewin, and then you're in the ending. And it's like, I don't really get how the ending, worked into everything else. So, but I'll get to that if and when we get into like the endings themselves.
Yeah, the part where Lewin is by himself doesn't really add anything to the story besides letting Aria find the pink door by herself.
Yeah, it felt very contrived.
Yeah, like that was the game's opportunity to tell us more about Lewin, but they still held back. And you guys ever hear about the Darth Jar Jar theory for Star Wars?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yes, it's my favorite theory.
Okay. Well, there are several valid arguments for Jar Jar Binks potentially being the villain in the later Star Wars prequels, but George Lucas was trying to outsmart himself, and in being so subtle that he could barely detect it, a normal audience couldn't detect it at all. And it was at that point that Jar Jar Binks went from a character who could potentially be something more to a joke, because the hints were so subtle, only Lucas caught them. And that kind of ruins it for a normal audience, because there will be smart people, Mm-hmm. There will be adults who watch Star Wars and they'll catch it right away. There will be smart kids who pick up on it, and everyone else will be like, what? And I think as a creator, you have to accept that some people are going to solve the mystery before you intended. But if enough people are caught off guard by it, then you've still done a good job.
Yep, I can agree with that.
Yeah, that hallway with the portraits, it really would have been better if it was like all split up. Like, imagine like after every section, like at the end of comedy, you would see the portrait of the librarian and his little section, right? And that's the only part you see at the end of comedy. And, oh, it makes sense. That's a librarian. And then the next section, like after Fairy Tale, you see the section where it's just the storyteller's portrait, right? And then so on and so on. Like, it makes sense that the storyteller is part of this library, kind of, because she seems to be always here.
Right.
And like later on, it's Lewin, the writer. Like, okay, maybe he's kind of connected to the library somehow at the end of like Romance or whatever. And then at the end of Horror, it's a portrait of Aria. And then it would be really weird because like Aria's like, when did this picture happen? Right?
Right.
It would be a lot more impactful if it was split up kind of like that, like evened out rather than all at the back end.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just
I
my
can kind of agree with that. No, because in doing so, something like that too, especially like sharp-eyed players will pick up on the fact, like if you had the librarian after the first scene, that you did in fact talk to the librarian to like have to start the game to like figure out where the the book is that you need to read to fall asleep to wake up, And so a player then would go like, okay, well, I remember talking to that guy, so he must be important to all of this, which, I mean, he is. He's very important to everything, but you don't see him except for the very, like, last couple scenes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so maybe the narrator for the first one, because you meet the narrator first, and then the writer, and then maybe Aria somewhere,
Yeah, but yeah, just in general, though, just keeping it not all backloaded, because it really did not work very well for me. It may work for other people, but for me, I didn't really particularly enjoy it being all just shoved in my face at the last minute.
Yeah, and the librarian showing up at the end was kind of like, hey, I'm here, woo! And then he's just taunting you to keep advancing, and then he asks you a couple questions, and again, like, we don't know what the hell's going on until we're told at the end.
Ah, jeez. We're gonna talk about the endings in detail later, right? Because like,
yeah, I'm going to.
All right, yeah,
I will also.
All right, Robyn, drop it. It's all yours.
Okay, yeah. I told you already in the beginning, I'm not too much of a fan of like scary, spooky games because like I'm a coward. So like, I start this game and then like, the game kind of starts and I get stuck right away. Like within the first 15 minutes, I get stuck without a puzzle happening, without something saying, oh, it's a prologue or chapter 1, without even meeting, like, anything that can kill me yet. I've already gotten stuck in the fucking game. Because it's like, we're still in the normal-ass looking library, right? At the start of the game. It's still the normal-looking library. Kind of spooky stuff is starting to happen, but it's still kind of normal-ish. So you can like assume that physics still applies. And then the creepy sign like at the entrance says, play with me, Aria. And ooh, spooky. It was really spooky for the first 5 minutes until I got frustrated about not finding where the fuck this key was supposed to work on. This key that I found does not work on the front door, and there's no other door, so where the fuck do I use it on? It's like, okay, sign, I'm reading you a lot. I'll play with you, sign. Sign that tells me to play with you. But no. Apparently, quote unquote, you're supposed to figure out that one of these shelves was something you could push. But no, I couldn't figure that out because like every time Aria looked at the bookshelf, she'd say, now's not the time to read. Now's not the time to read. Well, we've been spending like the last 15 minutes like not figuring out where the fuck to go, so I think it's a good time to read, Aria. Maybe check out the bookshelves better. And then when you do find the bookshelf, which is you can only tell it's the right bookshelf because like there's like some red like next to the bookshelf. And I didn't even get it correct when I like checked that out because like I saw the red, I went to that corner, I moved around, nothing happened, so I figured, maybe it's just scenery. And then I couldn't do anything for another like 15 minutes after that. But no, you're supposed to step on it, turn towards the shelf, and then press the action thing so that Aria will just suddenly figure out, I'll just push this for no apparent reason, even though I have like a 10-year-old body. I have a 10-year-old's body. Why don't I just shove all my weight against this bookshelf, which is probably like a ton? Nope, it moves easily. Wow. Jeez, goddamn it. Would it have killed you to like observe the front of the shelf and then be like, oh, now's not the time to read. Oh, wait, why does this shelf have like wheels under it? That would have helped so much. Fucking goddamn it.
Yeah, freaking it. So the shelf he's talking about at the beginning, you go into the garden, you fall asleep, and then you're supposed to get to the first riddle, and you have to move a bookshelf to do it. And there's some blood that leads to this shelf, and RM and I, apparently we're geniuses, we got it right away. You check the side of the bookshelf and push it across, completely ignoring the fact that it is full of books, and Aria is about 10 years old.
Yeah.
But Robyn is right, because when you check the front of the bookshelf, the exact same tile, when viewed from the south, it says now's not the time to read. And it doesn't give an indication that that is the right tile, but you have to check it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that Robyn didn't automatically assume Aria had superpowers and could move the shelf. You know, apparently RM and I are just weird like that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I started after you guys did, so I had the knowing that I was going to be pushing a shelf. So maybe the leap of logic wasn't quite as far, but like I said, when I got to that point, it's just like, okay, so I walk over to the left, I try to go out the front door, I can't, and then there's a noise, and I come back over to the right, and there's blood in a trail that leads to the left side of this bookshelf. Let me go ahead and check out and see what's here, and then Aria's like, I am Arnold Schwarzenegger, and she pushes the shelf.
Fucking goddamn it.
Yeah, most of the game had good conveyance. It told you kind of what you needed to do, where you needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
But that and also the caged book were bad conveyance.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, the caged book was like pretty funny, to be fair.
Yeah, kind of. Because like with conveyance, right, there's the part with the dresses. Like, there's also a book about colors in there. And it tells you about complementary colors. And you find a room with a green book. And he's like, I don't know who to talk to, or I don't know who to make friends with. And, like, you can select any other book in the room, but none of them are his complementary color red. You have to go find a red book for him to talk to, and then they get along and you get something to advance. And that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But with the caged book, I'm still mad about that. Like, it's set, you explicitly stated at the start of the game, keys are automatically used. Well, not this time, motherfucker. You're dead.
I mean, you still use the key to open the door. But yeah, no. I kind of just found that one funny. I was mostly pissed at the rabbit, just because you were then, like, you're not dead immediately. You have the chance to converse with the rabbit afterwards, and you try to give him the carrot afterwards, and it's just like, nah, I don't want your dirty-ass carrot. And then you're just kind of like, well, I'm dead now, so I guess let me leave. And then he's just like, you took something from me. Let me take something from you. I'll take your life. And then you're dead. Fucking rabbit.
God damn it. Alright, so why are you so pissed about the three bears? Because literally, like,
Okay.
like, you eat the porridge, you die. You take the tulip without replacing it, you die. It's one room. What grinds your gears so much about these bears?
Okay,
so Cody, it's not because it's just that one room. It's about the rest of the fairy tale area.
No. Well, that too, but I'll get to that as well with these bears.
Right.
I spent probably close to 10 deaths in this room with the bears trying to figure out what I needed to do, because it's available from the start. It's not something that unlocks later. It's available as soon as you come into Fairy Tales. So I figured I had to do something in here to unlock something somewhere else. So I'm like, all right. So I'll go ahead and I'll eat the porridge. How else does the story go? Okay, then she sits in the chair and then she goes into the bed. There weren't any chairs, so I go to the bed. I'm trying to use the bed. I can't fall asleep, so I can't complete the story. And then I try and leave, and it's like Goldilocks would have survived if she could, trick the bears or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then I die. And then I died, and I died, and I died, trying to trick these bears. Because at this point, I still hadn't even seen the trees yet. So I didn't even know that, you had to go get the 4 flowers. I hadn't even seen the book that talks about the 4 sisters and the 4 seasons. I had not seen any of this, so I had no idea what the hell it was trying to, be vague and alluding to. I just knew there were things in this room that I could interact with, and no matter what I did, I died. Now... I mean, once I'd gotten past that part, I'm like, okay, I get it. As soon as I had the fake tulip, I knew exactly what to do with it. But the only times in this game that I actually got a little bit spooked were the bears. They were so good with just because when you first talk to Lewin, when you first get to see him, he's at this bottom of this really long bookshelf row, and then he leaves. As you're coming back out, one of the bears peeks up from behind the bookshelf and goes back in, and it's that's a little spooky. And then later on, there's another floor, and it only happened to me when I saved. I don't know if it was just a one-time thing, but I went in, I saved at the feather, and then I turned right and then turned up to go into the downstairs path that's right there, and the dad bear was just in the doorway, and I didn't see him until I was almost in the door itself, and I was oh shit, and and then he faded away. And they were by far the most effective thing that spooked me at all. The little clown boys in comedy, I mean, they spooked a little bit, but those bears actually creeped me out a little bit with how just omnipresent they were. That's my rant on the bears. It's mostly just that it was part of that conveyance thing, because I had no idea what that room was even for, because I hadn't gone anywhere else at that point. So there were things I could do in that room, but nothing that mattered at that time. And so I got kind of stuck and kind of frustrated, and eventually, went other places, and I'm like, oh, okay. This wasn't somewhere I needed to go immediately as soon as I got into Fairy Tale.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't like that the beds were non-interactable, because, that is part of the story.
Yeah.
And, they incorporate the Sleeping Beauty thing in, oh yeah, this is an old spinning wheel, and we're going to prick you with it by having it leap out at you. But in this one, the story wasn't integrated into the game, it was just kind of there.
Yeah, they're just, there was there, and then there was the book of Goldilocks and 3 Bears in there, and then you're dead.
Yep.
Fuck those bears.
Oh, did RM get spooked by the indie game?
A little.
Oh, god damn it.
God damn it.
Oh, also, this is completely unrelated to anything, but I missed this note, but it is also in all caps and underlined. I have Aria is a menace. And it's referring to the scene where you paint the swan black. Because, it's a puzzle, but, it's just really funny to think that she just, goes into this room and just pulls out this jar of paint and starts painting shit black. Come on now, Aria. This is not your room. This is not your library. You can't just be painting things left and right.
But it says the black swan, and it's clearly white. Oh, man. So, in that room, so I noticed that they were both white swans. At first, I accepted that it was just, the same tile that they used, and then I looked up a guy and went, oh, that's the puzzle, black paint. Okay, gotcha. And then I went and painted the swan black. But before I painted Odile black, I tried to paint Odette, the white swan, just to see what would happen. Nothing happened.
Aw.
Would have been funny, but, that's neither harm nor foul.
Yeah.
if you got nothing else, Robyn, let's move on to the ending real quick, and I'll start because I'm short.
All right.
So spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, lots of spoilers coming up.
Ending spoilers, yes.
Like, if you haven't played the game, why the hell are you an hour into this podcast? So the game is about a group of people in a fantasy world. They're trying to get out, and there's a girl who's supposed to be dead. This sounds remarkably similar to Defeat the Darkness. Can I sue?
Yeah, dude, go for it.
No, as far as, like, the true ending and the bad ending go, Aria is made aware of, like, she died tragically somehow, and they used the golden quill to bring her back. Depending on which ending you get, she decides to write herself back out because she accepts that she's dead, or she just takes over because she doesn't trust her friends for some reason. But my biggest complaint is we're never given any hint that Aria was supposed to be dead. And I mean, you surprised me. You really surprised me. But as far as what the game told the player, Aria was very much alive. She goes and talks with her friend the librarian. She falls asleep in the library. We don't know how she died. We're never told how she died. And we just covered Off, and Off has a lot of vague shit in it. And the thing isn't that the shit is vague, it's that the shit is there, and people interpret it how they want. But with Aria's story, we're not given anything to bite onto, anything with which we can theorize her death. And I feel that was a wasted opportunity, and it was a way they could have given the game a lot more depth, and they ended up not doing it.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Somehow I think you misunderstood some of the ending parts, but whatever.
No, that's how it came across to me too, is that she was dead. The librarian used his family's golden quill to create a story in which all four of them were written into it, and then she's basically just a copy of their collective memory of Aria, and then they were all going to leave, and somehow leaving the story, because I imagine he put in the story that them leaving brought them back to reality. There's not really a whole lot of information on how this quill works. Also, they never write anything, so I don't get how the quill functions as a magical item. But then they all just are supposed to all go back and live happily ever after, which is what happens in the normal ending.
I mean, I think they did try to explain it a little bit. So, from what I understand, they were all friends, and then Aria died a month earlier before the game. Yeah. And then everyone was sad. So Lewin was in the middle of writing a story about Aria, but then she died a month earlier. Then the librarian guy is okay, I'll use this pen to make this story real, because the pen can't actually bring the real Aria back to life. So we'll just make this fake Aria alive, real or whatever.
Right.
So then I guess there's the fake Aria, and then the real Lewin and narrator got put in there by the librarian because reasons, I guess.
Right.
And then so even early on, Lewin was shit, this is my fault. Maybe I should kill her, actually, because I know she's not real.
Well, no, he never says anything about her being real or not. Basically, when he first shows up, and I'm going to note on this too, he basically is just I'm gonna kill you. And that's all he says. So when he first shows up and you're talking to him, I'm I don't trust you. And I didn't trust the freaking narrator either. I didn't trust the librarian when he showed up either. He's got all caps. I really didn't trust the librarian. But there's nothing from Lewin at any point that would have indicated that Aria is a fabrication of one of his stories. Or this specific Aria is, I guess.
Yeah, that's more of a problem of everything has been back-ended. Yeah. Because all this information is at the end, and that kind of sucks. It's not dispersed evenly.
So here's kind of my hot take on the story as a whole and the meta involved with it. At the very beginning, you get the little blurb that's between Aria and Lewin that you don't know at the time, where he's writing books and she likes reading them and she wants him to write a happy ending, and he's I don't do happy endings, which also kind of implies that he doesn't write very happy books to begin with. Like, everything is just probably kind of middling or sad or scary. And so it's also implied that he had started writing this book before Aria died. So my thought is that the first two sections, which are the comedy and then the fairy tale, which is where all the death happens, Aria keeps getting killed, all this was written while she was still alive. When she dies, that's about where the game takes a very drastic tone shift as far as what is in the story and what we see and perceive as the player. That's where Lewin would no longer want to write Aria dying because she just died in real life, so he'd want to like get away from that. And so he would want to write things that are more happy and peaceful, and that's where romance comes into play. And then, even in horror, nothing bad really happens, which is, like, I don't know. They could have, like, flipped some of the things around, like, had horror be third, and then, like, halfway through it transition into something nicer, and then it ends in romance, and my theory, my game theory, would be a lot more plausible. But that's kind of the only thing that I could really figure as far as why, because it's at that point when you're starting romance that like the entire game like takes a complete tone shift as far as what was there before. The evil rabbit was gone. All the ways to die are pretty much gone. The game becomes much more simplistic and just kind of like a general story than it is survive and figure out and don't die from all the weird shit that's going on.
Do you think possibly our issues could have been lost in translation?
It's possible, and this is kind of one of the things I was mentioning too, especially in comedy and in fairy tale, where you examine the bookcases. Aria gives her little blurb, and then it goes on from there. I'm wondering if there were things in there that once you get Lewin in your party, or there were other things that maybe she said that are kind of contradictory, and possibly in the translation they were like, oh no, that's contradictory. We need to make sure that this is consistent, where they're supposed to be contradictory because Aria's memories aren't like complete and they're not, all the same. It would give you some kind of like suspicion that, okay, maybe Aria's not all there, or, something else is going on. So it's possible, because that's really the only real indication that you have about Aria as a person is those bookshelves.
Okay.
I don't think raw translation is enough to fix the back end problem.
Oh, well, no, definitely not.
Because, like, that back end is very, very heavy. Like, in terms of information to take in. Like, it's all at the end.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because, like, I know with anime, when it gets translated and brought over, sometimes there's subtext that's lost. Because there's one show, No Wine, and it's all about dimensional travel and Schrodinger's cat. And there's a certain... spoilers for No Wine if you ever watch it, and you probably won't. They talk about Schrodinger's cat and how things that aren't observed don't exist in the context of Schrodinger's cat. And they even have an animation with cats in boxes, okay? Like, it's cats going in and out of boxes. I know exactly what this is with no sound. But what's coming out of the dub's mouth is about infinite universes, but not about Schrodinger's cat, which is really, really bad, because Schrodinger's cat gets brought up like 3 more times in the show where we can't observe this to make sure that it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that threw me out of the show.
Yeah, I can see that.
I would still find the No Wine bloopers on YouTube because they're amazing, but as far as the show goes, I can't exactly recommend the dub. But I mean, like, subtext like that, because imagine if there's, like, some fairy tale they were trying to reference, and the translators saw these lines, didn't know they were from something, and made them something more generic,
Yep. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and I mean, professional companies do it. I would assume an indie team could do it. It's what it is, man. But yeah, no, I agree with Robyn that the back end is huge. It's like Star Wars Episode 3 levels of huge.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And like I said, the worst of it is, again, that it's all back ended, but like all of the characters and everything that are in it too, like, because the librarian just shows up out of the blue, And I mean, Aria does like the little, oh yeah, it's the librarian, and you're like, okay, well, I don't care that he's here. I mean, there's so much that could have been put in earlier on to foreshadow what was going to happen. And like I said, even just after fairy tales or comedy, put in the picture of the librarian to let the player know at the beginning of the game he's relevant to what's going on. Or talk about this magic quill, or talk about other things that were created. Reference it in the book that Lewin writes with the two princesses. You know, like or the prince and the prince. I forget what it was. I think they were both princesses. But
Yeah.
like, there's so many ways and ideas that they could have used to like reference these different things, and you never see them coming into the game. And it feels like there was a lot of wasted potential, because the game could have been really cool with some of the messages it was trying to get across. I just didn't get a lot of those messages because everything was just kind of compounded all together. I wasn't given time to care about the quill and the librarian and all of that. Like, I was kind of, when Lewin and the narrator showed back, I was like, oh, hey, cool, you guys are back. Why are you with the librarian? He's evil. So,
Oh man,
but
that's how I felt about the normal ending too. Jeez, it's like, oh, they're all together, and then Aria shows up like, "Sup, bitches? What you talking about?"
yep.
Then they're like, "Nothing. Let's get out of here. The exit's here." Like, we're not gonna talk about. We're not gonna talk. It's just a dream, Aria. Just a dream. You're a stupid child. It's just a dream. We're not talking about it.
And she goes, yeah, I am a stupid child. It probably was just a dream.
Yeah, and that is the end, which is probably the happiest ending, to be honest. But it's definitely not the best ending or the true ending, but it's probably the happiest.
Yeah.
Although, all right,
Given degree of happy.
okay, all right. So getting into that then. Say they write Aria back to life. What is the librarian gonna like tell her parents? Be like, oh hey, I just wrote her back into existence. It's fine.
Oh, you know what? Here's what it is. Let's say she died in the library. Everyone goes, whoa, shit. They write her back into existence before anybody finds out, and that's when Aria's story takes place.
No. Maybe the librarian's going like, okay, Aria, you're not allowed to go home anymore. What? Why not? You live here now in the library. We have rabbits. Don't worry about it.
See, and I kind of figured too that was part of the reason why the rabbit was kind of like the antagonist to start with, is like what they had mentioned in the normal ending, where there's that one jackass rabbit that bites people. Like that became the antagonist, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of just potential that the game could have had that I just feel it fell flat with on things. There's a lot of like neat references back and forth and things to think about, but at the end I feel like, and again, it could have been a translation thing, but remember, Off was done in French and translated to English, and it didn't really lose much of any of its thing except for a few little things here or there. So I think if it was a translation thing, that they might want to try and do a retranslation on and try to keep some of it, or go through and add in some foreshadowing into there, so everything kind of feels more consistent all the way across the board.
Yeah, whatever they do next, I think will address a lot of what we're hating on here.
Yeah, was this their first game? Do you know?
I think Lydia's probably made more stuff, but this is the most successful for sure.
Okay. So it's probably at that point where they're definitely starting to hit their stride and kind of learn what needs to be done. And it's, again, considering the game is free, it's a pretty good game. Like, a really solid game for being a free game.
Yeah, like no major crashes or bugs or issues. It looks really nice.
It looks nice. It plays nice. There's a couple questionable puzzle decisions, and the story is still consistent and solid all throughout. I mean, I just would have made some different writing changes, but for a free game, this is a pretty pretty good game, all things considered.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my money's worth.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. We didn't talk about the bad ending yet, have we?
No.
Or am I the only one who actually cares about it?
I mean, it was interesting, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like a weird mood whiplash by the time you get to it.
The worst thing that the bad ending does, because again with backloading everything, there really isn't anything the player can do if they're allowed to see the photo before the end. If you let the player see the photo, that builds a little bit of mystery. And then even if answering the questions doesn't make a whole lot of sense at the end, at least, you contextualize it a little bit for the player for the bad end.
Right.
They probably should have shown the picture rather than just not say anything about it.
I mean, there's one little blurb where she's like, well, I guess I don't need this anymore, and there's the sound of paper tearing, So, I mean, it's referenced in that bad ending, but, like, there's no real indication.
No. I mean, like, way back when you get it in the pink room.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't actually see the photo unless you get the true ending. Again, they're trying to hold it back and maintain the mystery, but there's no penalty for showing that picture to the player.
Right.
Other than knowing, like, the librarian's an asshole, I guess.
No, I knew that from the start.
Yeah.
But, no, and I guess, too, and this happens in Danganronpa 1, so, I mean, if you haven't played it or know about it, then sorry, but, I mean, they drop photographs in that game early on to build the mystery and suspense, because you've got characters that shouldn't be together in situations that shouldn't exist, and you're like, what does it mean? And that, having shown the picture, back at that point, I think would have just started to turn a lot of the gears in the player's brain, just being like, what is that? What does this mean? Obviously they all know each other, but to what extent? And that would have definitely built a lot more for all the endings, I think.
Yeah,
too.
that's a lot better, interesting development over there, IMO. The way it is right now, the bad ending just feels like a super mood whiplash. It's like straight out of nowhere. I'm just evil now.
Yeah. What would compel Aria to rebel against these people when she's been nothing but nice and innocent and naive?
Right. Like if you were on like the bad path, if the choices weren't at the end and you had time to kind of see a transition, it would have been much more effective.
But like, in the end, she goes like, "Oh, you know my secret. You know that I'm not a real person. I guess I have to kill you all now." Ooh.
And then everybody was.
However, to the benefit of the bad ending, Aria's evil design is really cool.
Yeah, no, it was really good, especially when because they animated it too, like on the screen where she closes her eyes, and then she opens them, and like more flesh around her eye opens with it, and it's like, oh, that was really cool. I'm a fan of this.
It's like her face was cracking, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the design was really good. It felt incredibly inconsistent with her character that we had seen up until that point.
All right, now that we've ragged on the ending for about half an hour, let's change gears a bit.
Fine.
Which section was your guys' favorite? I really enjoyed Romance Part 1 up until the Fist Search because you still had enough light to see. Also, the hallways were lit. It's when you had Lewin and could interact with the shelves. It had a lot of book NPCs, and I thought they were really well written and they were charming. Like, Romance Part 1 to me is it's the most complete section and the best representation of the game.
Okay, I can see that. I probably, honestly, going into the game and expecting what I did from the game, Fairy Tales, absolutely my favorite part. Everything in that whole place just exemplifies the strangeness of like the Grimm Brothers fairy tales and the Hans Christian Andersen original versions. Because there's the one scene too, and I really don't know like what the point of it was besides just being eerie. I guess it moved some of the dolls out of the way, but like when the 9 dancing princesses were suddenly just out on the main floor, and you go and inspect them, and it's just like the doll has a terrifying smile on her face. Like, because you're expecting no matter what you do and where you go, because there's always one on screen for something to happen, for them to get you. But that, even the frustration with the bears, once I kind of figured that whole thing out, like everything in that whole area was just genuinely unsettling. And it did a really good job of capturing the horror vibe that the game was initially going for. Comedy was kind of hit or miss, and I'll just make one mention that comedy had a lot of things where, like, when you did something and then, like, left or change or something like that, that something on the screen would move before you left. Like, in the mirror room, you saw, you know, like a reflection of Aria. The little clown boys' heads would turn toward you. Like, there's just a lot of little really cool things that happen in comedy, but overall, I wasn't super impressed with comedy as a whole.
My favorite part, I'll have to agree with Cody because I'm a huge ass coward, and so romance has the least scariest stuff in it.
That's fair.
I mean, yes, I'm a huge coward. I don't normally play these games. Shut up.
Weenie!
But no, I mean, yeah, the first half of romance was a very solid, you know, a bit to the game. But I'm going into it, you know, expecting a horror game and getting a horror game for two sections, and then I get to romance. I'm just kind of like, what's going on? Where did the game that I was playing go? What is this?
That's fair. After Fairy Tales, like, the creative deaths kind of start dwindling, and like the bookshelves, I laughed out loud when I got squished by the bookshelves, and then when I got the juggling ball, I laughed out loud again when I got squished in a different way.
Right.
Like, I feel there's a lot of ways to dissect Aria's story style, and from a horror game, it was its best horror game during comedy and Fairy Tales, but the level of craftsmanship, the feeling of completeness, you know, every other aspect, I feel, was best done in Romance Part 1.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And horror, we couldn't see anything, so that was immediately the weakest section.
Yeah. One thing, though, in horror, when you're playing as Lewin, where you push the big old red book around, that was actually pretty creative as far as, like, a block-pushing puzzle goes, because you had to, like, loop up and around and come in from different angles, and I thought that was a really interesting way to make a block-pushing puzzle entertaining. So, other than that, though, I did not care for horror at all. Wasn't spooked. Wasn't really interested.
So if you guys would add a genre-based section to this game, what would you pick? Because I would go with mystery. Like, you could throw in some Sherlock Holmes stuff, maybe a little Agatha Christie. Like, I think mystery would fit in really well with what they were doing.
I'm trying to think of like something that, because going into it from the horror and the creepy standpoint, I don't really know what I would get into unless it was things, honestly, that kind of fall into like the Lovecraftian angle, where you've just got, you know, Cthulhu and all just these really bizarre, impossible to really comprehend, horrible things to add to it. Because it was like me being like, oh, what would be like your preferred favorite section? Like, oh, dude, medieval fantasy. I love that. That's like my favorite, you know, genre to read. There's not really a whole lot of like horror you can do unless you spin it in like a very literal medieval sense with, you know, people dying of the plague everywhere and people starving because there's not enough food to go around, and you know, and then it's just kind of depressing. It's not even like scary. But I'd probably go something Lovecraftian if I were to add something to this game to make it more horrifying.
I would pick sci-fi, I guess, because that's actually a genre that was like in the shelves earlier on, like before Chapter 1. Like that's actually on the shelves. So I thought that was gonna be a thing, but it wasn't. And it made me sad. There's a lot of horror stuff that can happen. Like Frankenstein counts as sci-fi, I think, and like aliens are always scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, sci-fi was definitely something that could fit into it. Yeah, I had the same thought when I saw there's one book that she was looking at that was sci-fi. And I was like, oh shit, are we gonna get some very vague Star Wars and Star Trek references in here? Because if so, I am all about that. And then, and then, yeah, no sci-fi. So sad.
Oh wait, so where was the sci-fi book?
Like when you were arranging the Romeo and Juliet thing.
Oh, okay, because that was something I wanted to bring up. Apparently, there's more genres because they had comedy, they had fairy tales, like they had the genres that you're going to go into in that initial room. But I thought this was actually pretty good foreshadowing if it was intentional. There is no tragedy section.
Yep.
But there's also no sci-fi section.
Oh,
Yeah. Same.
Because, like, if it was just tragedy, then, oh shit, we missed the first hint at the beginning of the game! Oh, man!
Nah. Can you imagine all the weird new creative deaths you could have in sci-fi world? Like, oh no, a Frankenstein monster. Or oh no, a Jekyll and Hyde. She got trapped in the carbonite slab. I don't know, I think it's fun.
Welcome to Carbonite Story, everybody.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different areas in worlds like that could have added to, I guess, the overall for it, but I don't know. Mystery would probably be the best to add to like the total feel of what was going on, because the entire game you're trying to kind of figure out what the hell is going on. So I think that would probably be the best addition overall. So, and getting outside, I'm just kind of going back to Lewin, like the scenery you're playing as him, like everything that he's doing. I don't get how that contributed, because like there's the whole thing where you rewrite Dracula's title on the book, and it's talking about how the title is very important to the book. Was that supposed to be like a hint that we're playing Aria's story? The book that he wrote is Aria's story? Like, is that what was supposed to be there?
I don't know.
I don't know either. There's so many things that happen on his thing that I'm just like, what? Why?
It's like a modern blockbuster film. Like, they have to check a couple boxes. And in this case, we must separate the two so Aria discovers the pink door. And so then Lewin leaves. And
right.
Yeah, and then also has to show Lewin is not a complete asshole when he's alone.
Oh, then he helped out a book. How sweet. But they already established he's not an asshole because earlier in Romance, he saves Aria's life.
Yeah.
And we're not told how he saved Aria's life, but he did.
Oh, yeah. I hated that too. Oh, you saved Aria. Can I check how you did that by entering the... No, don't open the door.
Yeah.
Don't open that door.
And it's totally me, guys. Okay, cool. All right, back to adventuring now. And it totally is him.
Like when he showed back up, I was like, oh shit, this totally isn't Lewin. And then like it was, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a letdown. Like I don't know if it was supposed to imply that he had the quill and he wrote the doll out of existence. Like there's so many things that are like implying, but they're not to the point where like you're kind of like excited about it, because there's not enough information to know like the bits and pieces of is your guess correct. It's just I don't know what happened. All I can do is just kind of throw things at a wall and hope that I get something right.
Yeah. I was actually hoping I could enter that door and then I'll just find the dolls on the corner, all like blood everywhere, like knife wounds on it. Like don't mind that. Just let's go.
Yeah, no, instead it's just like, don't open the door. And Aria's like, okay, whatever you say, boss.
Spooky!
But, like I said originally, even with because most of my problems with this game, I know it feels like I've been ragging on it, but honestly, most of it is just nitpicking. The game itself is solid all around. It's a really good play. I would probably not be upset having paid $5 for it. Anything more than that might be, but like I said, especially for a free game, the game is fun. It's pretty cool. A lot of creative puzzles, a lot of really creative ways to die, especially early on. So I liked the game. Like I said, all of my nitpickings aside, I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it was good time. Robyn, anything else to add before we wrap this?
It was an okay game, I guess, but like I said, I'm not into the spooky, scary games. So if I had to give it a super serious score, I'll have to give it the lowest score that the game reviewer could possibly give, which is a 7 out of 10.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I agree with RM. Worth the time, and I look forward to their next project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So thank you all for listening to the rpgmg podcast, or the rpgmgp. This is Cody, and we'll catch you next month.
And this is Red Mage. We'll see you next time.
This is Blue Sky Robyn, and man,
Bookshelf.
can we start over with that one? I fucked it up at the end. Jeez, goddammit.
What'd you fuck up?
The ending.
Okay, go.
Okay, 1, 2. This is Blue Sky Robyn, going to bed now for a month. You guys really don't care about the ending or anything?
We just spent an hour talking about the ending.
Fuck, I fucked it up again. Okay, you go back. Just keep it all in.